right matters. I don't care if they're from the left or the right. The bottom line is the reports of treatment, they're coming out of that jail are reprehensible. They are not American.
These scientists may be complicit in one of the greatest crimes against humanity.
But I think it raises a lot of questions about whether the money is going to be funneled ultimately into the Chinese Communist Party and the Chinese military.
You got to pick a side. And General Milley picked one. And it wasn't the red, white, and blue.
Hello, welcome everyone to an Americans for Limited Government live stream. Today we want to bring you the 7 biggest lies of Homeland Security Secretary Mayorkas. And Rick Manning is going to break this down for us. Mayorkas has been on our list for a while. We've been watching him closely because he, of course, oversees what's happening at the border, or more accurately, he is not overseeing effectively what's going on at the border. It's a total disaster. So welcome, Rick. I'd like to go off an article that you and I came across recently. I think it's a good one from the New York Post. They simply called it Alejandro Mayorkas' 7 border lies. So why don't I just start with the first one and have you explain to us a little bit more about what's happening here. The first one they say is that Mayorkas has bobbed and weaved when it comes to the number of illegal immigrants, or Haitians specifically, at the border.
Yeah, Mayorkas was more than willing to talk about the Haitians and express surprise that this number of people had showed up at the border from Haiti. It's the same level of surprise that the Biden administration must have had when they discovered that Kabul was falling in Afghanistan, after having satellite data tracking the movements of the Taliban northwards towards Kabul for months. But, similarly, Mayorkas is surprised that there's so many people, so many Haitians at the border. And the fact is, he knew how many there were. There were 15,000. And we know, in fact, there's 5,000 more than that. It's actually 20 now that are being processed. And that's he knew the extent of it. He would have had to be a fool not to. Back to them, they watched the South America and would not have popped up. They came across multiple borders of countries that supposedly Kamala Harris, vice president, is talking to regularly about trying to deal with root causes of illegal immigration. Certainly, people from Haiti coming across their borders to America would have seemed like a natural conversation piece between Kamala Harris and those countries, and naturally Mayorkas would have been in the loop. But of course, the real thing is we actually can see them because we have overheads. We know what's going on. We have satellite overhead, so we track these people all the way from South America. We knew what was happening, and the bottom line is Mayorkas just lied to the American people about it.
All right, thank you, Rick. The second lie that we want to talk about is when Mayorkas says, what we do is we follow the law as Congress has passed it. Wow. Now that's a whopper. I think anyone can see that that is a lie.
Yeah, they don't follow the law. They are refusing to deport people. Mayorkas in the last week has been quoted saying he doesn't think that people who are here illegally should be deported. This is the guy charged with the Homeland Security Department. And he said he doesn't think they should be deported. And so, no, they don't follow the law. What they do is they ignore the law, and they do it time and time again because they believe that this is the open borders policy of the Biden administration, and we're seeing it writ large. It's why over 2 months, over July and August, we had over 450,000 illegal immigrants caught by the Border Patrol. And of those, a vast majority were released into the interior of our country. Border Patrol only catches about half of the illegal immigrants coming to this country. We have an absolute invasion. Every 2 months, we're taking on a a very large city, a city about the size of Baltimore in terms of new illegal aliens coming into our country. And we cannot assimilate that many people in a short period of time, which means it's big trouble. And that's just the reality of it. That's not counting the 1 million people we let in legally under the law. So we're actually bringing in way more people illegally than we actually allow in legally. It's the system. It's incredible.
Rick, I want to just bring in some comments from our viewers out there. Steven says, be careful. If you comment negatively, we could be investigated. Oh my gosh, right? Isn't that what every conservative is worried about? Do your job.
Steven, let me.
Yeah, go ahead.
Now, let me tell you, Steven, here's the deal. You're right, but if you've been paying attention to what Americans for Limited Government's been doing, certainly during the Biden administration, but before that, for at least the 11 years I've been working here, 5 years I've been president, this is the least of our problems if they decide to get mad about stuff we're saying. Taking on big government is a bipartisan job. We take on big government no matter who's trying to grow the government. And we've been pretty steadfast in that. We've been pretty aggressive, and we've been successful. So yeah, do I lose sleep over it? No, but the reality is, yeah, I mean, they're monitoring what you say, and the federal government could, in fact, decide to put an end to this tomorrow. But then I wouldn't be doing my job if I wasn't telling you the truth, and that's my job.
Well, let's see. Sue Stiver says, do your job. And I think she's directing that at Mayorkas. And we agree, yeah. Sue. Let's see. Kevin Jump says, stop the lies. Again, Mayorkas. And we are here to talk about all of the lies that have come out of Mayorkas in recent weeks surrounding what is happening or not happening at the border. And I would point out, Rick, when we were talking here about what we do is we follow the law as Congress has passed it. I think the biggest area there is clearly the stay in Mexico policy that the Supreme Court in August told the federal government, you have to follow that. And that is the big lie to me, is they aren't following that. So when they claim that this administration is following the law, I would point just to that one alone and say, you were told by the Supreme Court, you must follow that. And they're completely ignoring that one.
Oh, absolutely. That's 100%. That's 100% correct. They have anything that the President Trump put into place is automatically bad. President Trump had this problem under control. He was working with nations, Mexico and Central America, to deal with the problem. The people in Central America, let me be clear, the governments of Central America don't want their citizens leaving and hollowing out their country. One of the biggest problems they have in countries like Honduras is their young men are leaving, and they're leaving behind pregnant young women that then are being left behind and are impoverished as a result. And they're leaving, and so Honduras doesn't want that to happen. El Salvador doesn't want that to happen. Guatemala doesn't want that to happen. But when America puts up a welcome sign to all who come, that's exactly what does happen. So we're exacerbating the poverty in Central America while creating an untenable situation here in America where our systems, our public health systems, and our whole system for social safety net system is overtaxed by people who are coming here, and they are, in fact, 20% of them are, because admitted that 20% of them are sick. They're not being tested by and large for COVID. Some are, but most aren't. Certainly the ones who aren't caught aren't.
Rick, what about this one?
Yeah.
What about this one? Mayorkas claims, quote, we have enforcement guidelines in place that provide the individuals who are recent border crossers who do not show up for their hearings are enforcement priorities, and they will be removed. Wow. Like, is there anyone in this country who actually believes that they're going to be removed? I mean, like, as you said earlier, they're being dropped off, shipped in, bussed into the interior of the country, never to be seen again.
Yeah, well, how would they remove them? They don't know who they are. They don't know where they're going. They don't know what their relationships are in the country. The fact of the matter is, they're given a carte blanche, sent into the middle of the country, and sent to a neighborhood near you, and they disappear into the woodwork. And that's at best during the Trump administration, when we're trying to figure this out. The number was that 93% of the people who came here and applied for asylum with a court date in the future did not show up for the court date. 93%. What would make you think that the people who are coming in now would be any more reliable? And oh, by the way, the ones who did, a vast majority of them not for amnesty. So those were the ones who thought they would be eligible for amnesty. So let's just be real. These people aren't coming back to the judicial system. They came here because they expect amnesty. That was the promise. And by getting across the border, they think they'll get amnesty at some point. And all of that, any court date becomes a moot point. And it's actually in their interest to avoid a court date.
Rick, what about the image now that we see on the screen? And this is, of course, the one that went viral. And Mayorkas says, this image painfully conjured up the worst elements of our nation's ongoing battle against systemic racism. What are your thoughts on this lie from Mayorkas?
This picture and how the Biden administration treated is probably the single greatest bit of evidence why Mayorkas needs to be fired. The men and women of the Border Patrol put their lives on the line to defend our border, but they also put their lives on the line to save the lives of illegals who are crossing illegally, who get into trouble and are many times are abandoned by the coyotes who are running them, by the human traffickers who are running them across the border. The cartels will often do something where they take a young woman and a child and they will abandon them in a very dangerous situation, knowing that the helicopters and the Border Patrol will actually deploy to save those people, opening up gaps in the border that they then sneak through the most dangerous of the criminals who they're trying to bring into America. That's a typical tactic. These Border Patrol agents save many, 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 many people's lives. And to attack them for using horses as they have always been used for crowd control. They were not whipping anybody. Anybody who looked at the pictures knows that's true. And this was a setup by the Department of Homeland Security in order to discredit those Border Patrol officers who are putting their lives on the line for this country every single day. And Mayorkas should be fired for it. The fact that Joe Biden goes along with it tells you just how far out of whack the supposedly moderate Biden is when it comes to defending our border. And it's a black mark on America that Mayorkas remains as head of Department of Homeland Security when he's attacked the very border agents who are doing their damnedest to solve this border problem.
Rick, what about this lie from Mayorkas? He said, "We do not agree with the building of the wall. The law provides that individuals can make a claim for humanitarian relief, and that is actually one of our proudest traditions." I would say, first off, on that one, if you are here to claim humanitarian relief, there is a process by which you do that. And sneaking around a wall or through, the river, that's not how you claim humanitarian relief. So for me, that's the big lie there. And do you want to add to anything there?
Yeah, the law is, they said they follow the law earlier. Well, here's the law. The law is they go to the nearest U.S. embassy and they say, we want to claim asylum to get in the U.S. That would mean they go to Mexico City. They go to the U.S. embassy in Mexico City and they claim and they ask for political asylum. That's the process. That's the law, if you actually want to follow it. But at the very least, what you don't do is you don't go through gaps in the wall. You go, if you really want to present yourself to the authorities, you walk up to the border crossings and you say, I want to claim asylum. And what they're supposed to do then is they're supposed to say, okay, you wait over in Mexico while we adjudicate your case. But what Mayorkas is doing is he's saying, okay, we're going to take you into the center of the country where we'll never see you again while we wait for you to come to a court date. We've already gone over how absurd that is and how that doesn't work. Fact of the matter is, Donald Trump had solved this problem through an agreement with Mexico, an international agreement with Mexico that Mayorkas and Biden have basically blown up as the open borders policy is designed not to be compassionate, but rather to encourage people to put their lives in the hands of human traffickers, of cartels, for thousands upon thousands of dollars, and which they then have to pay off once they're here. That's the reality. This is a slave trade, and that's what Mayorkas is enabling. That's what Biden's enabling, and once again, it's why Mayorkas has to be fired.
Rick, what about this one from Mayorkas? He says 11 million people in this country without lawful presence. He says is a compelling reason why there is unanimity about the fact that our immigration system is broken and legislative reform is needed. So I would just say first to that, when they talk about an immigration system that is broken and needs reform, what Mayorkas is talking about is amnesty, right? And there's no reform. It's just let's make everyone legal and open the floodgates up. And I don't think that's what people who propose limited government are talking about when we say we have a broken immigration system and it needs reform.
Well, by using the fact that 11 million people have broken the law to get into our country as evidence that we have to have laws to make it so those 11 million people are rewarded for doing so is so stupid and circular as to be almost unbelievable. But that's the argument he's making. He's saying 11 million people broken the law. By the way, the number's more like 22 million, but he's saying 11, so we'll go with that. He's saying 11 million people have broken the law, and that's proof that our immigration system is broken. No. What's proof that our immigration system is broken is that there's 11 million people who've broken the law who are allowed to remain here, who are not deported, who are not sent back to the country of origin, who are not allowed to jump the line. If they went and they said, we currently allow 1 million people in, and we think we should raise the number to 1.5 million people who are legally allowed in. Let's have a discussion about that. There's a reason that you can discuss whether the amount we have are the right number, whether or not we should have a system that actually goes off and takes a look and says, we have a need for people with certain skill sets, and we're going to put people with those skill sets at the head of the line from around the world. Those are real discussions about immigration. Those are discussions that the Donald Trump administration was having in terms of the immigration reform law they were proposing. That's the kind of discussion we need to have. Should we have chain migration? If you happen to get here, you then can get every single shoestring relative you've ever had to come across the border legally, dramatically expanding the impact of 1 million people coming across the border illegally in the last, actually it's more than 1 million people coming across the border in the last year. Those are real discussions. That's immigration reform. Saying people broke the law, so now we have to reward them. That's not immigration reform. That's surrender.
And Rick, what about this one? He said, I wouldn't call it a flood in reference to, we can see the image right there on the screen, thousands, tens of thousands of Haitians coming across our borders illegally. We can all see that with our own eyes, what's happening. And as you pointed out earlier, the federal government has technology where they can do surveillance on the border and really know almost to a granular level, like the number of people that are at our borders trying to come across.
And the number of people, if you've got a small to mid-sized city moving across Mexico. Okay, that small to mid-sized city takes supplies. That's why they call it a caravan. Well, guess what? If we can't track a small to mid-sized city who's moving towards our border, then we have effectively failed in our most basic mission of protecting our own country. And so if you want to believe him on this stuff, you have to believe that we should ditch the whole thing because they clearly aren't doing anything they're supposed to. In terms of the concept of this being a flood, I guess you could differ about what a flood is. in an environment where in August you had 208,000 people come across the border illegal who were caught. I guess 15,000 would seem like a drop of the bucket. I mean, that's only about 7 to 8% of the total number that came across in August. So maybe he's thinking of that 15,000 in comparison to the astronomical, never before the number of people coming across our border and encountering border patrol as we had in July and August, when July was 210,000 people and August was 208. So I guess and I don't know what the number was in September because I'm going to find it. But the fact is, I guess in comparison to those numbers, 15 seems like a small number. When you compare it to the 125,000 people from Afghanistan, of which we only know who 15 to 30,000 are when they got here. I guess compared to that, 15,000 isn't a flood. But if you're you're a small town in Texas and you have 15,000 people drop in on you and you double your population overnight, guess what? That's a flood.
Thank you, Rick, for breaking that down for us. If you like what you're seeing here, Americans for Limited Government live stream, follow us on YouTube.
And Catherine, remember tonight, we're going to be sending out a take action to fire Mayorkas. So you're going to be receiving, if you're subscribed to the ALG our Daily Torch, if you've been receiving take actions from us, you're going to receive a take action this evening, October 7th, doing that. And tomorrow morning, it will be up on our website, or rather it'll be in your inbox in the Daily Torch when you receive it. And lastly, if you go to getliberty.org, that will be up on getliberty.org as well as a button. So we've got there's a lot going on there. But the fact of the matter is, we've got the opportunity here to take action. We don't just talk about problems. We try to engage you in dealing with it. We need to get Congress off their tails and start tackling this problem. And the first place they need to start is by impeaching Mayorkas. You can impeach a cabinet level official. And so we're asking you to join the effort to get Congress to start acting, to get this Department of Homeland Security under control, either by using their budget as a cudgel or simply by taking out the head of DHS, Mayorkas. I think we have to use both.
All right. Thank you very much, Rick. And thank you all for joining us for our Americans for Limited Government live stream. We'll see you next time. Have a great day.
Thank you.